afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here. I think, as you can probably tell from the accent, not from around these parts. But delighted to have the opportunity to talk to the chartered bodies. So, David and to Connell, thank you for the invitation. I'm a member of the Irish and the English and Welsh Institute, so double fees. I'm not sure what else I get, but that's good. I also spent 8 years serving on the Council of the Irish Institute, so a big fan. We were just talking before we came up about the quality of the premier brand that we still enjoy. And one of my early jobs, a little bit about my career, but my first job outside of practice, I trained with Touche Ross, now Deloitte, and then I worked in banking. And at a relatively young age, I was qualified at 23 or something, but I was the chief accountant of BNP in London at the age of 26, which meant I was signing prudential returns, etc., etc. The fact that I had a chartered accountancy qualification meant that nobody was asking any questions. I guarantee you, if somebody who wasn't a British national was in that role and there was any question of what sort of qualifications they had, it would have been, is this person suitable for a role like that? But the fact of the chartered premium brand meant that there was no conversation about that at all. And I think that's a theme overall when we think about career. The fact that I got a job in BNP in London in the 80s was because they recognised the premium brand of chartered accountancy. I then was lucky enough off the back of that to work in the environmental services industry for a couple of years, and then found my way circuitously through logistics and others to the fascinating world of telecoms. And the emphasis on fascinating, and I didn't hear anybody or see anybody nodding in the audience, but if you think about it, probably the biggest transformational change in our society in the time that we've all been at work or study is communications. There are lots of others, but it has been the most significant. And in some respects, as we sit and think about technology and our role is, the question for me is, will chartered accountancy survive counting to 5, as in 5G? Because I can tell you, it is a fundamentally transformational technology, particularly when it's mapped to AI and deep analytics at scale. And honestly, if you think that it's a communications technology, you have completely missed the point. 5 years ago, when I used to do talks like this, I talk about if your strategy doesn't have a mobility angle in it, you've missed the point. Well, I can guarantee you, if you are talking to clients and they haven't, in a 5-year plan, thought about how they'll either exploit 5G and AI at scale, or how they will be disrupted by 5G and AI at scale, I think there's a real challenge to their business plans. So when we think about the impact of 5G and how it might affect a group of chartered accountants, I want to start with a little anecdote. And the anecdote is that I went to see the BBC in London about 10 years ago. And the guy who was running digital strategy at the BBC at the time was a New Yorker who had been at Time Warner. And he brought me around, showed me some of the new technology they were deploying. And he told me this story. He said, the first 10 years of television was simply radio in front of a camera. Now think about that for a minute. The actual first adoption of television, the first live broadcast, was a fixed camera in the corner of a radio broadcast studio, and it filmed a radio broadcast. That was all it did. Think of what video content, think about TV as a genre now, fundamentally different, hugely, hugely disruptive of lots of sectors. So if you think about the first 20 or 30 years of telecoms, and particularly mobile telecoms, actually that's the same phase as that first 10 years of television. Because largely all we've done is done what we always did and just unplugged it from the wall. We're largely using mobility as a location substitute for the same things that we used to do in a fixed wireline environment. When you get 5G, which is ubiquitous connectivity at scale, and you map it to deep data analytics, you create a real-time information economy, which impacts every single model of business. It also affects, in my view, fundamentally, the role that auditors think it will do that in a number of ways. But let me talk a little bit about what 5G is. So let me tee up the video, and we'll just play the video. You'll actually hear small kids talking about the lat, their lat's better than somebody else's lat, about getting your retaliation in first. Now, if you're a Wall Street trader, you buy latency today because you actually buy access to a subsea cable between London and New York that has lower latency than a cable that was put in the sea 5 years earlier. You literally trade that latency today. Well, think about it, somebody on a mobile phone actually having lower latency than the guy who's trading in that fiber optic network, and actually you can trade faster than the Wall Street trader as a day trader. Interesting ideas. Think about living life in real time. The reality of 4K video streaming, you can say, well, kind of, does it matter? The average broadband speed in homes in America today is 23 megs. Our 4G network's already delivering an average of 28 megs average download speed. The 5G network in the first few days is running at 750 megs download speed, and we expect that within a relatively short space of time to be 1.5 gig download speeds. This is not incremental change. This is fundamentally disruptive change. Capacity. If you've ever been in a busy New York around Times Square when either all the tourists are in or the traffic and trying to get coverage, trying to get access, well, think about the fact that there will never ever be a lag or a buffer in Times Square ever again. That element of reliability. Think about how you can re-engineer business processes if you can be absolutely certain that you will have that capacity when you need it. So those are just examples. But when you put all those pieces together, and ultimately there are 8 currencies, including the fact that you can support 100 times as many connected devices in a location as you used to be able to, and you can improve battery life by 10x, you start to create a whole lot of scenarios that can be fundamentally disruptive of existing business models. Many things that in 4G were niche cases can be transformational cases. If you're a device manufacturer today and you sell handsets that's at $1,000, and I can tell you we sell a lot of them. We're the world's largest customer for both Apple and Samsung, between them spending pretty close to $20 billion US buying their equipment, just to give you a sense of size and scale. But if I use that example, it's not specifically about them, but most of what you're buying is the fact that it's got greater computing power than was used to put a man on the moon. Well, actually, one of the things that 5G allows you to do is move all your computing to the edge of the network. Massively disruptive of lots of business models, cloud models, because there won't just be the cloud, there'll be the metro edge, and then there'll be the far edge in the network, where actually things that rely on either ultra low latency or super high performance can actually be put closer to the end user. That also means your $1,000 device, of which $800 is compute power, can actually be a $200 device, because actually the compute can be done on the edge of the network. That means that something might have been a niche case where you could deploy 1,000 of those units. For example, facial recognition in cameras in a smart city might cost you today $4,000 or $5,000. If you put the facial recognition software and other compute in the edge of the network, you can get there at $400. That's the difference between deploying 100 cameras or 5,000 cameras, improving transport, improving speeds of traffic, a whole series of things, safety in cities. So what you've got is you've got a whole load of things that are coming together, which when you map them to the ability to deliver massive data in real time, creates a hugely disruptive and hugely potentially powerful capability that will permeate every single business model that's out there. If you're an auditor, and the fact is, one of the things that you rely on is your accountant is developing the fact pack, the truth, the powerful analytics that allow you to have the biggest data set on the planet that tells you, I know the facts, what I really need now is your input and your judgment as to what to do about those facts. Actually, I believe it will liberate auditors to get back into the role which they originally were, was the trusted advisor to their business partners. In many instances, particularly in the US, in my view, that role is generally played by the general counsel and your external legal advisors. In Europe and the UK and Ireland, it's still the weight of the role of the auditor is still a strong one as a business partner to the corporate clients that they serve. But actually, judgment will become a hugely important thing again. And I think whether it be in the way the regulations for accounting are done or for auditing, this ability to make sure that we don't have to debate the facts, because we can establish the facts with great certainty. Now what we need to do is debate the implications. I think will change the nature and the role of accountants either in corporates or as advisors to their corporates. Also think about the deployment of robotic process automation. There's lots of things that you do in your audit today that simply don't need to be done in that way. I'm old enough to remember, the statistical sampling of the fact that if I needed a 95% confidence with a plus or minus 3%, I needed to have a 1,004 or whatever it was as my audit sample, etc., etc. Those things are going to change because we have the ability to check 1 million examples at the cost of checking 2 invoices. Those are the sort of things that we have to think about as change. So if I pull the pieces together and just kind of bring it, there's a fantastic opportunity with the deployment of 5G and the availability of AI and analytics at scale that can positively disrupt, but it can create a fantastic set of opportunities for businesses to evolve their model to create new streams of revenue. But the challenge is that if you don't change, I guarantee you somebody in your sector will, and will deploy that technology against you in a competitive way. I think as chartered accountants, we have what it takes to be in the vanguard of driving that change, embracing it. I also think there's a huge opportunity for us to contribute to a broader positive impact. One of the biggest challenges, and it shocked me when I first came to the US, is that the digital divide is greater in the US than it is in most countries in Europe. And it's not a geographic divide. It's not just simply about whether or not people have access to connectivity in rural versus urban areas. The digital divide in New York City is as big as the digital divide anywhere in the United States, and it's the reality of the haves and the have-nots. One of the things that Verizon is doing, we're investing about $400 million in innovative learning to support schools to make sure that more of our young people have access to the technology they need to make them digitally responsible, digitally aware, but also digitally participative in a way that they can be economically participative, which is positive for our society and positive ultimately for our economy. So when you think about the role that 5G can play, think not just about the business outcome that it can achieve, but think about how, with a coalition with educationalists, with government, and with others, how your business can also contribute to a greater impact and positive outcome for community and society in a way that will make us not just all proud, but will also grow our businesses in due course. So thank you for your time this afternoon. As I say, if you take one thing away, if it's not you that'll disrupt with 5G, it's your competitor.